Welcome back to another video, guys. Today I'm finally able to talk about my experiences with the new Xbox Series console, in particular the Series S, which is just behind me there. I've had about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks with it now, and I've been able to play some optimized games, some backwards compatible games, and you guys sent in a lot of questions which I've been able to test out. Some of them, unfortunately, I don't have the ability to test out, but I've answered as many of these questions as I can, so let's dive straight in. The first question we have is from M2704, and the question is, if you plug in a USB drive, maybe one from the One X, will it recognize it immediately? And I have an HDD with about 30 games. It would be awesome if I could just plug that in from the get-go. I'm aware that this would not work for Series S and Series X games. Yeah, first question, straight on the money. This was one of the things that I really wanted to know, and I keep Call of Duty on a USB stick, so I wanted to know if I could plug that straight in from my One X to the Series S, as that obviously is a 4K textured game. And yeah, I took out the USB from that straight into the Series S, and it works just fine. A week ago when I first did it, I did have some load issues. It was freezing, but that may also be down to server issues because I had a similar issue on the One X. But yeah, it is possible. If you have games saved on a drive and an external from your One X or One S, they will work and run off the Series S. Now, Series S and Series X games on external drives, on my one, they don't seem to work. You have to transfer it to the console. Maybe there's some speed issues there, but if you want to run newer games, the Series S and Series X optimized games off of a external, you'll need to get the expansion pack. The next question is from Joak99. Are 1080p games upscaled to 4K and can they run at 60 frames per second? Yeah, that's one of the main reasons why this console, I think, is going to be really awesome for a lot of people, because a lot of people won't want to go out and buy new screens. If you're buying, the more affordable of the two units, it's more likely that you are on a budget and you don't have money to go out and buy a fancy new screen, 4K and high frame rates and all that kind of stuff. But if you do already have a 4K TV, this will upscale those games to 4K. And one of the interesting things I noticed, I did have a question that I haven't included here, was about Gears and people saying that it doesn't seem to run at 1440p, which is this console's native resolution. One of the interesting things is all of the games, a large number of the games I've played so far run natively at 1080p or 4K. Publishers don't seem to be making games specifically for 1440p yet. Gears Tactics runs at 1440p, which is great. But it's interesting that they're going for 1080p as the kind of lower resolution if they're not hitting 4K. I'm not sure if that's because they've done a calculated guess, and most people will have either Full HD TVs or 4K. Not many people will have 1440p screens, people who are in the market for this console. It throws out the question, why has Microsoft created a 1440p console that is mostly currently at launch running 1080p games? Maybe that's something future-proofing for games to come down the line, but in my experience, most of the games are running at full HD that aren't on a 4K screen, and then upscaling to 4K. So that's something worth mentioning, I thought. And also, will they run at 60 frames per second? Yeah, in my experience, the games that I've had, they will run at 60 or close to 60 when they're upscaled from 1080p. Next question is from Mangia Cakes, sorry if I said that wrong. Do backwards compatible games run better on the One X, or is it literally the same as the One S? Yeah, I've got a couple of older games loaded up on my console, and including Mass Effect's Destiny 2. The load times are the main thing that you'll notice that is much, much improved. So compared to the One X, the Series S, and the One S, even when you're comparing those with the older consoles, the load times are night and day. It's much, much faster. Everything's smoother. Even navigating the menus is smoother. So you will notice a difference coming from those older generation consoles. The next question is from Mr. Tailmore. If you play Warzone, how's the frames per second? Is there a possibility to change the resolution and frames per second in option? Yeah, I have played Warzone. Frames per second, it seems to be running as smooth, if not a little bit smoother than the One X that I have. And is it possible to change? Yeah, so in the settings, I think it's called Device and Hardware Settings menu, I'll try and pop that up on the screen now so you guys can see, but you're allowed to choose, it enables you to choose your target resolution and target frame rates for your games. Depending on what your TV or projector is capable of, then it will allow you to choose the settings that it can do. The next question is from Dr. Cursor. Can you share some details about the new Xbox One X controller improvements? between devices. Campaign materials only say it's improved. Yeah, the controllers, as you can see here, look super similar. And they don't feel particularly different. This just feels a little bit more refined, I would say. They have added some textured material, well, textured finish to the back and to the triggers. They've also lost the dip that you've got there on the Xbox, around the Xbox logo. And obviously they've upgraded to USB-C instead of micro USB type A, I believe. And it still takes AA batteries. I don't know if your battery packs for existing controllers are going to work because they do feel slightly different in size. It's tiny, but yeah, those older battery packs, I'm not sure if they're going to work on this. I don't think they will. Someone else asked me if the light is much brighter or dimmer on the logo. I would say it's slightly more diffused because it's got a frosted finish to it. So it's not quite as bright as the older logo, which might appeal to some people. There's also a new share button, which I really love because I found sharing content before really awkward. So I'm loving that they've included that. And the D-pad has a more pro design. So instead of those kind of just a cross and with the gaps in between, which normally gets crumbs in them, they've gone for a slightly more pro look on the D-pad, which I really appreciate. And yeah, generally it just feels a bit tighter in terms of construction. Everything feels a little bit more responsive. They said it has lower latency. I can't tell if it's the controller or the console that's doing that, but everything does feel a little bit more responsive, including using the controller. Next question is from Save Me HKV. How much usable storage is there? Now, this is a question that a lot of people did ask me that I wasn't able to answer before the embargo lifted. You do have 364 gigabytes available, which is 1 gig less than the One X, I believe. And that is, for me, it was enough. It's been enough so far, but I can appreciate some people's concerns that as games get more advanced, that 364 isn't going to get you as far with games that are, you know, huge, like Destiny, like Call of Duty, which are 100 gig files. Next question is from Dragoon005. Just curious, what resolutions can you use the Xbox game DVR to capture on the Series S? Like, can I capture games at 1440p? I'm not sure because, like I said, I can only see what my screen allows me to do. But in the settings, when you look at it, it allows you to choose either 1080p or 720. So I don't know if it can capture higher than that, but that's what's available to me when I go into the settings. Robbie RR says, does it heat up? Is there any noise from the fans in the games you've tested? Yeah, it does get a little bit warm when I've been playing for significant periods of time. But that is to be expected from any console, I would say. And in terms of noise, it is super quiet. Like, as you can see, I play with it quite close to my desk. Well, I'm quite close to my desk when I'm playing, and it's barely audible at all. It's super quiet. Even with games like Gears, with Dirt 5, it was quiet. Like, I have to actually look to check it's on when it's just running and I'm doing other stuff, because it doesn't seem to make much noise at all. The next question is from DEAENN_. I don't know how to say it. Is it Dean N? Cool. Would you recommend this to a person that doesn't care about 120 frames per second but cares about 4K? The short answer to that is no. If 4K and, you know, ultimate graphic quality is what you want, then the Series X is obviously going to be for you, because natively this is 1440p, and even upscaled, it's not going to look as good as 4K. But saying that, upscaled 1080p games to 4K does look really good to me, to my eye. But if frames per second isn't the most important thing to you and you ultimately want the best looking games and the most detailed looking games, then yeah, the Series X is probably the best console for you. Next question. What's the system's internet download speed? Last gen was a gigabit connection. My PS4 got 40 megabits per second. I'm really hoping for something better this time around. I'm not sure what the actual spec is. I haven't checked, sorry. But in my experience downloading games, I was able to hit 1000 megabits per second on downloads. Anything between that and 60 seems to be about quite normal for my internet connection here. Maybe if your internet connection's better, you'll get more consistent high speeds. But yeah, I have been able to hit 1000 megabits per second while downloading games, which means a big difference, especially with updates on things like Call of Duty. The next question is from Maximilian H. How does backwards compatible Xbox One games run on the Series S? Do they get better performance than the normal Xbox Ones? Well, I kind of already answered that. Yes, everything seems to load and operate a little bit smoother. Next question. I'm trying to go through these quick because I appreciate this might end up being quite long. Next question is from RR Desai 93. What about Assassin's Creed games and Red Dead Redemption 2? Do any of them run on 60 frames per second on the Xbox Series X? Oh, sorry, Xbox Series S, and are they at better resolution than the Xbox One S? I haven't played Red Dead Redemption 2 on this console, and what I believe from Rockstar statements is that they haven't they've locked out their games at 30 frames per second for next gen currently, but I think that's probably because they're going to produce optimized and newer titles for this generation of consoles. So yeah, they won't run at 60 frames per second as far as I know. And the same with Assassin's Creed. I'm not sure what they're aiming for in terms of frames per second, but they are making an optimized version of Valhalla, which will run at higher frames per second on the Series S. So it will perform much better for you. In terms of resolution, I think it's the same thing I said before. Some of these titles are going to be optimized for 1440p, but a lot of them seem to run at higher frame rates at full HD. And again, that's going to come down to what the studio chooses to do with their titles. So maybe they'll decide to do something different in the future, but currently it seems to be full HD at higher frame rates for those titles. Next question is, how fast does it boot? Well, let's just fire it up and have a look. That's it. And we're in. And one of the other questions that I didn't get that I expected to was about quick resume, and that is by far one of my favorite features about this new console and one of the big differentiators, because for me this console is about casual gaming. I don't want to sit around, I don't have time to sit around waiting for games to load. So if I get home from work and I just want to jump straight into a game, features like quick resume is going to make a huge difference to a lot of people. So last night I was playing Gears. I've just fired up the console and we'll just choose Gears again. And as you'll see, I'm straight back in the game. Like, no loading, the game's just there. Right where I left it last night, which is crazy. And the other cool thing is you can switch between titles that are optimized for quick resume as well. So what other games do I have that are optimized? I think Doom Eternal should be one. So we'll fire that up and then we'll switch between this and going back to Gears, and you'll see how it works. I mean, if any of you guys are Doom fans, you'll see how much quicker this is to get into the game than what you've experienced previously. So we're loading now, press A, and we're in. So I'm going to continue game. You'll see how quickly it loads into that. How long was that? Like 6 seconds? And we're in. I mean, it looks good too, right? It's pretty decent. And this game isn't even optimized for the new consoles. Now, it's been a while since I played Doom Eternal, so I kind of suck at it now, but I'm going to just give you guys a quick look at some action as well while we're here. Might as well. Don't judge me for being terrible though. Ah, God, I'm already dying. Come on, do better. Oh God, this is so hard. Come on. Oh my God, I haven't died yet. Woo! Okay. I can't believe I actually did that. Every time I've tried to play this part of the game in the last couple hours, the last couple of days, I have died. So that is an absolute miracle. That I didn't die right there. You guys are bringing me good luck. So yeah, anyway, that was what it looks like on... This is actually a Full HD TV as well. So this is just running Full HD at 60 or 120, I'm not sure. But yeah. Looks pretty good. So let's just dive straight back into Gears so you guys can see quick resume and how that works.
You guys here to pick us up?
We're not, but the convoy's on the way.
Anyway, enough of that. Let's jump back into Doom and see if quick resume will work. So as you can see, quick resume's popped up. Resume and I'm back in the game. Almost no loading time, which is just crazy. Like I said, one of my favorite features about the new consoles, and I think is going to be one of the biggest difference makers to people who are upgrading from previous gen to next gen. So yeah, let's get back into the questions anyway. That's enough from that. Okay, next question. How big is the Xbox Series S in comparison to the controller? Next to the controller, I'd say if you put two of them side by side, it's about that long, or if you laid three flat along it. And yeah, it is really not that much bigger. Oh, it's not that big in comparison or relation to the controller. I think you are going to be completely surprised by the size of it. That was the first thing that struck me about the console, is how small it is. I genuinely cannot believe that it's as powerful as it is, being as small as it is. It's quite impressive. I'm getting the Series X, but I have one last question. I know the technology from the S to the X is different, but how much faster are installing times? Like a 40 gigabyte game, how fast does it install? Once you've downloaded it, install times are like minutes. It's super quick. Much quicker than on my One X. I'd say maybe 25 to 30% faster. Next question is from Shaggy Poo. Great name. Will I be able to fit 4 AAA games? Yeah, as I mentioned, you do have 364 gig worth of storage to store games and apps. I have currently, what do I have on there? So I've got Valhalla, Warzone, actually Warzone is external, Destiny 2, Doom Eternal, Sea of Thieves, Mass Effects, Madden 21 and Gears 5, all installed other than Warzone. And I've got 39.1 gigabytes free, so definitely enough for 4 AAA games, but not if they're the size of Destiny and Warzone, because obviously those games are 100 gig each. So you'll be really scraping it if you want to have 4 games that size on your console at any one time. So with that said, I think Series S owners are going to have to get used to the idea of, regularly rotating if they want to play a lot of different games constantly. And I think the same would be the case for most people if you do that anyway on older consoles, because I think you had a similar amount of internal storage in the Xbox One X as well. I think that's 365. So yeah, it's definitely enough for 4 AAA games, unless 4 of them are, Destiny and Warzone sized. And next question is from Jamie Lee. I'm a casual gamer now due to family and work commitments. I don't get a lot of time to game. The Series X and PS5 are not worth it for me personally, as I won't be able to invest the time to actually utilize them. I use Google Stadia, which works brilliantly, no downloads or updates, click and play, which suits my lifestyle, but it's lacking in the game department right now. Hence why I was considering buying the Series S. Yeah, Jamie, I think this is specifically the type of person that I think is really going to love the Series S, because small footprint, it doesn't take up much space. You can take it and move it around the house if you want to play as you need. But also, there's not a huge investment in terms of cost. You don't have to have loads of discs, because obviously it's digital only, and you've got access to hundreds, if not thousands of games via Game Pass. And I think that's the huge benefit. People are going to be able to play a lot more casually. You've got things like quick resume, which means you're not going to be sitting around waiting for loading a lot. So yeah, the Series S for me is the ideal console for the more casual gamer that doesn't need the utmost quality. I think this is for people that just want to have a fun experience on new games and older games. And again, the price tag makes it a lot more accessible for me, and for people who don't want to make a huge commitment in terms of price and gaming. Next question is from AHUIP. I don't know how I say that, but the next question is, have you had any moment where you were disappointed with the performance and thought you should have gotten the X? Well, as you guys know, if you watched my unboxing video, if you didn't, make sure you check that out after this. But yeah, I was given this as part of Microsoft's reviewer program, so I didn't actually buy this console. I have bought the Series X, which is arriving at some point, I think Monday. But I have been able to compare the two, and I would say for the type of... Initially, I did write off the Series S when I thought, the Xbox Series X is, all bells and whistles. That's the console to get. But the Series S at that price, giving the kind of performance it has in my time with it, I've been genuinely blown away by how good it's been. Once it's in the games, it seems to be working beautifully well. And I've been genuinely surprised by how good it is. So yeah, not disappointed at all with the Series S's performance. If it was my money and I was a more casual gamer, then yeah, I'd be more than happy to spend £250 and get the performance that I've got from it so far. Next question is from S4R0DK. Have you noticed any frames per second dropping while you're playing? And are all the games you've played working at 60 frames per second? No, not all of them seem to be working at 60 frames per second. Some of them, Gears and Dirt 5, are running at 120 frames per second, which is unbelievable and super, super smooth, which I absolutely love. I haven't noticed any frame drops. I did notice something weird on Legion when I first had access to that, but the publisher removed access because I think they were still making optimizations. So one time when I was playing Legion, I noticed a guy just kind of hanging in one of the scenes. It was super weird. I'll put a picture of that on my Instagram stories if you guys want to see that. But it was super weird. This guy was just kind of hanging on a ledge and he wasn't moving. So I think that was just a glitch in the game. So, I mean, you will still get... It's an early console and I was playing it before it was optimized. So you will still get little things like that occurring in these early days. But yeah, in terms of frames per second, I haven't seen anything drop. It seems to hold FPS a lot more consistently than the previous 1S and 1X. Next question is from Ultra SWAT. Does the share button immediately take screenshots when you press it? The share button is, again, like I said before, one of my favorite new features of the console. It makes it super easy to get stuff that you want captured while you're gaming. One of the cool things is in the settings, you can actually choose what the share button does. So you can press it and hold it, and you can set it to one of three things. So you can either press it to take a screenshot, press it to start and stop recording, or you can press it to capture the last 30 or I think 45 seconds of the game. So I've got mine set to when I press it, it captures the last 30 seconds, and when I hold it, it takes a picture. Next question. Are there any noticeable differences from the XSX, which I'm getting because I don't want to pay full price for games on XSS? Noticeable differences, well, detail is the first thing. Games do look better on the Series X, as they should. They're a lot more detailed, a lot more depth to them than the S. But in terms of performance, no, I haven't really noticed anything that, unless you're, I think you'd have to be really, really looking for noticeable differences to see them. I haven't seen anything in terms of performance between the two. Next question is, have the download sizes actually been reduced for the S? Yeah, so obviously you're not downloading 4K detailed textured games for the S when they're optimized for the S. So the game sizes should be about 25 to 30% different, but across the board it doesn't seem like there is a uniformity to them, because Warfare on that is the same size as it is on here, and there isn't really any difference. So I'm not sure if that's a publisher thing or a Microsoft thing, but the game sizes should be smaller. Next question is from Stringer Beal. How's the S and what is the difference? Like I said before, the differences are, in terms of performance, aren't very, for me, they were barely noticeable, if at all. Obviously, you've got no discs, smaller storage, and lower resolution gaming. But other than that, the Series S is a beast. It's a tiny beast. Next question, does it run Linux yet? No. I didn't even know why I read that out. Next question is from Kasim or Kazmin. Is it awesome? Yes. Yes, it is. The next question is from Braille Staff. Hey man, not sure if you're allowed to talk about this yet. I am now. But what is the resolution and FPS for Gears on the Series S? I've heard mixed things that it rarely hits 1440p, and that was the reason I bought the console. Do you think it will be fine in terms of performance-wise for most games? See, I touched on this earlier. That is one of the things that is quite interesting. Some games aren't running at 1440p, even though that's what Microsoft says they've created this console for. They're running at 1080p and then full scaling, or they're just running natively 1080p at 120 frames per second on my setup, which is weird. Yakuza seems to run at 1440p, and Gears Tactics is running at 1440p, but some of the other games that I played, Sea of Thieves, Gears, Watchdog Legion, Gears 5, sorry, Watchdog Legion, are all running full HD, not 1440p. Now, I don't know if that's an optimization thing and publishers will need to push out 1440p games in the future, but at the moment, they're not all running 1440p as standard. Frame rate, I was getting 120 frames per second on Gears 5, which is super smooth and crazy immersive. So yeah, I'm loving that. The next one is from Zulu Shastri. How are the load times? As you guys have seen, just with Gears and with Doom, they're a lot faster. Someone asked me to check out Destiny 2. The load time for that was about 40 seconds, which is much improved over the previous consoles. I think I was getting like over a minute before load times, which is, I mean, it's not crazy, but the improvement is very noticeable in terms of load time. So that is a big plus. Next question is from 4RN4S. If you have GTA, how many frames per second do you get in a lobby with 20 plus people standing in the lobby? Well, I don't have GTA, unfortunately. I don't play that game anymore. But as I mentioned before, Rockstar's games currently are locked out at 30 frames per second, which means you're going to get 30 frames per second more consistently than you would have on older consoles. But they don't seem to be able to do more than that at this point in time. Zach Cog 100 has asked, are you able to check if Ark Survival Evolved allows you to host a dedicated server for the Crystal Isles map? This is a very niche question. It doesn't let you do it on the One S, but it does on the One X, so I'm unsure if it will, as it runs on the Xbox One S versions of the games. I don't play that game, and I don't know what the answer to that question is, unfortunately. I imagine if it's able to on the One X and it's a power issue, then the Series S should be able to, because in real terms, the Series S is more powerful than the One X. But yeah, I don't have a specific answer to that question, sorry. And the final question I have, we got there, is from Me Smart Guy. It says, so I could only snag the Series S. I currently have the Xbox One X. Will it look any better than my current console, you'd say, on my 4K TV? The short answer to that question is probably no, because the One X is obviously running 4K games natively for a 4K display. But in terms of frames per second, if it depends on kind of what you prioritize. Is smoothness and action the type of thing that you're looking for? Or are you playing slower paced games and detail is going to be more higher on your priority list? If you play action games like I do, like Gears, like Dirt 5, like Forza, then you're going to notice a much better difference on the Series S. It will look much improved and be more enjoyable, I think, over the One X. So that would be my answer to that question. Whew. So we got there. That was it for all of the questions that I was able to save and answer. If you did have any that I didn't get around to, I apologize. Also, if this video was super long, thanks for sticking with me at this point. You are my heroes. If there are any questions that I left out that I didn't get around to answering for you, don't hesitate, put them in the comment section. I'll answer them if I can. And yeah, in the meantime, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.